What's up, everybody? This is Jacob.
I'm Mac.
Today we're going to be covering the topic of UFOs. Ooh, I'm sure some of you guys have heard of them. I'm sure everybody's heard of them. Maybe
I think I have.
Some of you might have seen them, Today we're going to start off with a notable sighting. Jimmy Carter, ex-president of the United States, saw a UFO that he described as being the darndest thing I've ever seen. Him and 10 to 12 other people were outside of a Lions Club meeting in Leary, Georgia in October of 1969. And they see this ball that was changing colors, and it was about the size of the moon. Really bright. And they only observed it for a couple seconds, about 30 degrees above the horizon, if there's any geometrical people in here. And, that was it. I assume that it shot off. There's not really much information on what it did. It was just the fact that a president, or a presidential candidate, had seen a UFO, one of these things that is so taboo and so, taboo yet still sought after in a lot of different communities. That definitely is one of the things that people point to as to where, Hillary said she was going to declassify information if she would get elected. You have all these different politicians that run on this notion that they can, once we get elected, we're going to declassify a bunch of information everyone's going to know. And a lot of times it doesn't work out. But Jimmy Carter is one of the ones that sticks out to me because, he lends a lot of credence. He was I don't know what his, if he was a senator or what he did before, sorry, I'm a millennial. But seeing a UFO with a group sighting with 10 to 12 other people is just, it's crazy to have someone in the mainstream world, not necessarily the media, but the media is going to cover him. And, they went right there and asked him about it. So if you have seen one, don't feel bad because you are in the class of Jimmy Carter.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's one of the experiences that we wanted to highlight, one of the personal accounts. There's plenty of them, plenty others, but...
Yeah, one that I think is interesting is in 1947, there was a private pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold, and he was flying from Chehalis, Washington to Yakima for a business trip, and he decided to take a detour to try and find a wrecked Marine Corps transport plane and get the reward for it near Mount Rainier.
Wow.
When he was approaching Rainier, he then saw lights heading eastward towards Yakima. He described it as light reflecting off a mirror, and that's what he thought it was. And after he moved a bit and checked to see if that's what it was, he confirmed it wasn't because he kept seeing it. They approached Rainier and they passed in front of him, usually appearing dark against the bright snow covering the mountain, but they would occasionally still give off the bright flashes as they flipped around erratically. They were moving, not just flying in a straight line, kind of thing, and
not like an airplane.
Yeah, exactly. And as they would move and rotate at one angle, they would become near invisible. They were so thin.
Wow.
He described them as objects with convex shapes, though he said later that one was actually a crescent shape. He likened them to moving like saucers skipping on water.
Oh, wow.
He didn't specifically say that their shapes were like saucers, but he did compare them to discs or pipe hands, and that's, I believe, where the term flying saucer comes from.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that specific one.
Credit to Kenneth Arnold.
Correct, I believe. He was curious about how fast they were moving, so he timed them going from point A to point B, and then later figured the distance out, and through the time concluded they were going 1,700 miles per hour.
This was in 1947?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually faster than any jet of that time period. Like, I think almost 3 times faster.
That's pretty darn fast. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's a encounter that sticks out to me.
See, yeah, and I mean, so many people are seeing them. World governments are aware of them.
Right.
Just recently, the Pentagon declassified a bunch of information. Declassified some videos that have been out there. They've been in the communities for years, but it was the vindication of finally acknowledging what everybody, in the UFO community and not in the UFO community have been experiencing. And there's some pretty cool stuff in here. Literally on the NSA website, nsa.gov, there's a UFO documents index, and there are hundreds of accounts, different events, different articles. A lot of it's redacted. It is hard to go through, but there are some drafts of I don't know if they'd be synopses, but it's almost like a conclusion of a lot of the different skeptic point of views or the arguments that they would use to discount what people are seeing. And they go into a lot of detail about how to disprove those theories. So without saying yes, they're saying yes. They're saying that they're not saying no.
Like they have to think of something that it could be.
Right.
They can't leave it at we don't know.
Exactly, because there's even an explanation to they could be just natural environmental experiences or phenomena that happen naturally. Like, are you kidding me? What? I don't know where refined metal or aluminum comes out. It just grows out of the ground. But, these things, what part of Canada can I mine, time travel or warp speed from?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So, there's a lot of documents that came out. We really encourage everybody to go check those out, because it's you could spend hours and hours going through this. And it's just mind blowing that this is an admittance by the United States government. Now, granted, there have been some situations or events that transpired right before the release of these things, and so a lot of people are just gonna discount it as, that's just them trying to, a little diversion of what they really are, going on, if you believe in the deep state. And that might lend some credence, but nonetheless, we've been waiting for, Kenneth Arnold was in 1947, so if at least that long for UFOs to have been popped up on the radar to get some sort of confirmation. And it's just really cool. You guys go check that out.
My personal favorite example of something getting declassified and talked about is Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. In the 60s and 70s, multiple times they're reported to have seeing glowing red objects flying around the base, and they were about 30 feet in diameter, and they, well, from up there above the base, they deactivated every nuke in the base.
Oh my god.
Had a like it flipped the no-go unlaunchable switch.
Wow.
Set all the lights off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, just think, if it can shut them all off like that, it could probably set them all off too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it can control them remotely. That's insane.
Another really good one is the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Okay.
So there is a United States Air Force base stationed in Rendlesham Forest of Suffolk, England. This occurred in December of 1980. There was a security patrol near the east gate of the base. They saw lights descending into the forest. They initially thought it was a downed aircraft, but upon investigation, they described a glowing object, metallic in appearance, colored with lights.
Ooh.
As they attempted to approach it, it appeared to move through the trees, and all the animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy.
I mean, that's their sixth sense.
Yeah, sensing something, right?
Right.
The lights have been attributed by astronomers as being a natural debris from burning meteor in the area from that time.
Burning out from the atmosphere.
Exactly. So that was at 3 o'clock in the morning that they reported that. Upon daybreak, they returned to where they saw it before it flew off, and took like radiation readings and stuff, and where they saw it was off the charts.
Wow.
Yeah, and further out, they found another high radiation area, and they also, in that area, they found 3 impressions in the ground in the shape of a triangle. And then in the middle of that triangle, they found scorch marks.
Oh.
And around that triangle, there were a bunch of broken branches on the trees.
So exhaust coming out, and then the concussion of it taking off.
Yeah, or it's, it may have been big enough to break the branches physically too.
That's true. Yeah.
Now, while this investigation was going on, they look across a field, and almost in line with the farmhouse, they see another light.
Yeah. While they're investigating the
Correct.
first one? What?
And then later, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky about 10 degrees above the horizon, and they hovered there for 2 to 3 hours and would randomly beam down a stream of light from time to time.
Jeez.
The deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, who was in charge during all of this at the time, recorded what he saw onto cassette tapes, and he also read a memo as well as affidavit that were eventually released in 1983 under the Freedom of Information Act. So if you guys are interested in that, look those up.
Jeez.
They're interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, you have people that see the stuff that are high-ranking military. Jimmy Carter, I mean, what more credence do you want to lend to people other than, base commanders?
Exactly.
Like, yes, there are your people that live out in the desert that only see, 500 people a year that see him all the time, but also people that have passed a lot of, tests that we would associate with being competent.
Incredible.
You know, it's a very, very widely experienced phenomena. And I mean, I don't know what event gets even wider than the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights, for those that don't know, was an event that happened in 1997. And I remember being a little kid seeing the newscast of when it was happening. And I remember them saying, there's a UFO, we don't know what it is. Well, really, when you see, you know, watching the newscast of what's going over Phoenix, it was, I mean, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So imagine you're grocery shopping, Phoenix, 1997. Nighttime, you go out, you leave this grocery store. I got kale, you know, it's going to be a good week. Walk in the car, you look up and you see 7 lights in a triangle formation, not a very deep triangle, but, you know, in obtuse triangle, you know. And it's about a mile wide from one end light to the other end light, and it's flying over, making zero sound, directly over the entire city of Phoenix. I personally would be freaking out thinking that Independence Day is happening, but it was a huge phenomenon, and of course, our all-knowing government discounted it as being flares.
Right, from like a military training operation or something.
Right. But, you know, people, these were seen.
It was a whole city.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a whole city.
It was a whole region.
Yeah.
They first saw them up by Nevada, right?
Yeah, Nevada and all the way to Mexico.
Golly. That's the entire state of Arizona. Like,
about 300 miles.
You have people that saw them with reference points against the mountains, you know, so you can see, they see them and they can determine, well, they don't determine, but they estimate the size because they're flying over a mountain, and some kid or some mom, you know, happens to look out and see, what is this thing that's flying very slowly, not making any noise, no signs of exhaust, just lights in a line. Like, you know, we've seen F-18s and F-22s. When you see them, you're eventually going to hear them and they're going to pass over you. This thing is going at slow rate of speed, you know, and it's like, I don't understand how, you know, people can discount it and say no.
Yeah, that, and while that was going on, cities over, people were reporting stationary lights.
Wow.
Not just the ones that were moving.
That's a whole fleet.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, who knows what it was?
A mothership with smaller ships around it.
Correct. And you know, speaking of credible people, the governor of the time, Fife Symington, was one witness to this event, and he called the object otherworldly.
I mean, you know, and that's a term that people will, I don't want to say throw around, but it comes up a lot because there's no explanation. I mean, you see something like that and it's nothing like you've ever seen before. How else would you describe that? It's
like trying to think of a new color.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's inconceivable. Like so, you know, that's a really cool, that was a mass sighting. Thousands of people saw it.
And you know what's crazier? A decade later, those lights were reported to have reappeared.
Oh.
And then the year after that, they reported again.
Well, I mean, Arizona's a hot spot, but that's just, they don't care. I mean, they're going over our major cities. They're messing with our nuke bases. You know, they understand that to us, we're ants in the petri dish. You know, I think that with the nuke thing, they're showing us, hey, we can control your strongest weapon and at a blink of an eye, detonate itself or make it, you know, unusable, take it offline.
Yeah.
Like what? Listen, I have an older brother. Okay, I have had the intimidation. I've had this is going to be mine, and you're not going to tell mom about it, and had to just go on with my life and accept it. That's kind of how I feel with these UFOs. It's like, well, yeah, they are here, and they could probably mess us up. They reserve the right to mess us up with what we've done to this planet. And, you know, it's just it's something that we need to come to terms with and say, all right, well, they're here. Let's recognize them, y'all.
Nothing we can do except just go on with our lives currently.
Really, I mean, until we start breaching out, and even then, you know, I've heard talks of a base on the moon. You know, we want to start colonizing Mars, stuff like that. We're going to have neighbors that are eons more advanced than us. You know, we got to remember, the Milky Way galaxy is pretty big, but we're one galaxy of billions of galaxies in the entire universe. Like, you know, there could be everything, and that's not even including if you want to delve into the dimensional type of theories where they're interdimensional. But yeah, the Phoenix Lights incident was a huge incident. It birthed the National UFO Reporting Center, I believe. Peter Davenport, shout out, made a couple reports there. And everything. It's incredible that these things can be seen over huge populations, can be seen by high-ranking officials and people that we put our entire economy's trust into, for residents. Like, and then it took until 2020 to really declassify and for them to recognize. But here we are. We've heard of them flying.
Yeah, but you don't really hear people talk about this is the crashes.
Ooh.
It's always I saw one flying.
Yeah, one what goes up must come down, I guess.
A notable one that I can appreciate is in 1965, December 9th, a brilliant fireball was seen by thousands in at least 6 states.
Wow.
And Ontario, Canada. It streaked over the Detroit and Michigan / the Windsor, Ontario area and dropped metal debris.
See, meteors don't do that.
I don't think so. All over Michigan and Ohio.
Jeez.
It was traveling so fast that it was causing sonic booms.
When was this?
December 9th, 1965.
Wow.
Yeah. The fireball landed in the woods just outside Kettsburg and was purportedly acorn-shaped.
I mean, crafts do come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. The United States government officially stated that it was nothing more than a meteor.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's an acorn-shaped meteor that happens to still be intact by the time that you find it.
Yeah.
You know, that's shedding off metal and seen 6 different states, 2 countries. Yeah, absolutely. Kecksburg's it's almost like a northeastern Roswell. But another good one that happened up here in the Pacific Northwest is Maury Island. And Maury Island, for those who don't know, is in Puget Sound, just across the water from Burien, from Dash Point, I believe. And that one was in June 21st, 1947. That was that, when did the Kenneth Arnold one happen?
Kenneth Arnold was, I believe, 47.
Yeah, when?
Oh, June 24th.
This is June 21st.
Really?
June 21st of 1947.
This is the same state.
In the exact same state.
Yeah.
Western Washington, Puget Sound, where we currently sit. Maury Island. It was a man and his son. They were log salvagers in the Puget Sound. Back in the day, the timber companies would send the logs all down the river, and the ones that would get away, people could get them and bring them back and cash them in. And so he had a boat out that launched from Tacoma, and he had two deck workers, two deckhands, or I believe it was two, and his son. His son was 15, 16. Oh, and the family dog, by the way. Gotta bring the dog out on the boat. He's also a skipper. And they were out, picking up logs, getting them out of the water, and they noticed all of a sudden there was five or six. Oh, 1 second here, I lost it. 6 UFOs hovering over them. They were just off the shores of Maury Island, and they noticed these UFOs hovering above them, and one of them that was closest to them, almost directly above them, was smoking and having trouble stabilizing. It looked like it was having a really hard time staying in the air, and the other ones were just observing it. And so he saw this and was so frightened by it, so scared, that he jammed his boat, not a small boat, not a 28-foot boat, we're talking a 40, 50-foot boat. He ran it aground on Maury Island, and as he did that, the UFO that was above them that was smoking and stuttering exploded, and it set fire everywhere. It burned the sun. The boat kind of partially caught on fire. Right as they ran aground, they ditched the boat. They all ran up the shores on Maury Island, thinking that the other UFOs were gonna, have to do something. I mean, you're obviously in the line of fire of something that is malfunctioning, and they killed the dog. The dog died, and so the other UFOs take off. They eventually get the boat back in the water, go back home. While they were going back home, they gave the dog burial at sea. And when they get home, the deckhands are like, "All right, I'm never working for you again. That was too much crazy stuff. What the heck?"
Fair enough. Yeah.
You're doing this your entire life, and then all of a sudden one day, not do you see one UFO, but you see multiple, and one of them freaking explodes right above you.
Yeah, it's a little too much for me.
Yeah, that's job site, workplace hazards I wouldn't sign up for. But they go back home, and he's trying to forget about it, trying to process everything. And the next morning, there's a knock on the door about 7 o'clock in the morning. And what it was a man in black that claimed to be intelligence officer, and told him that he needs to, if questioned by the authorities, you're going to say that it was a hoax, because we don't want any further trouble over the matter. Now, what kind of trouble if you have nothing to do with, like, if this is this is an alien technology. What kind of trouble would you get into by exposing it? Now, I think that they're pissed off because I think personally that they just lost one of their UFOs they were trying to test drive. Us.
Or just, something top secret in general.
Our
right?
government, yeah. And so that, plus that happened right over the only people in the entire freaking area that happened to be a boat full of people. So now you got to go shut these guys up. And it's the first documented instance of a Men in Black encounter where a citizen has been suppressed for what they see. And it's just crazy that, you know, I keep on going back to the fact that we just got declassified documents. You know, we just joined the other countries that have recognized them. And it's taken since 1947. And I assume before that, if this guy's already getting threatened about it, so that means the government's already aware of it and already has programs set up. So, yeah, I like to highlight that one because it's the first recorded encounter with Men in Black. Another good one historically is Aurora, Texas. And Aurora, Texas happened in 1897, where a cigar-shaped craft crashed through a windmill on old Judge Proctor's property on his farm. And they destroyed the windmill. He had to get the locals. They cleaned up the wreckage. I don't know. It doesn't really say what they did with the majority of the wreckage, but I assume they just threw it in the county dump. Because they also threw wreckage down the well that the windmill was on. And this one's really interesting because there was a pilot. There was a pilot that, in this crashed ship, they recovered a pilot, a body, and they buried him in the town cemetery. They, like any good Texan, they gave him a Christian burial.
Full honors.
You know, he's going to meet St. Peter and be able to say his word. But yeah, it was in the newspapers. There's been some pushback. People have thought that they've cracked the code on investigations, and, you know, skeptics think that they have it figured out, but it still remains, you know, unsolved. There was instances where a guy in the 30s, you know, was thought to have gotten poisoned from drinking water from the well.
Didn't he have like an unidentified illness or disease?
Yeah, it was something that they would attribute to like ingesting aluminum or something. But yeah, that caused his skin to deform and large growths to grow on him. There was actually they had a tombstone, they had a gravestone for this thing, for the pilot, and it was vandalized. But at one point, there was so much hype around it that they had sat a police officer right outside the graveyard to protect it.
I believe the tombstone was part of the ship, was it not?
I don't know. No, I think it was just because I think it was sandstone.
Oh.
But it was, you know, you're not gonna just mark an empty grave if you.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And let's just remind everyone, this is 1897. Okay, this is 6 years before the Wright brothers pioneered flight.
So anything falling from the sky with a person in it is unimaginable at that time?
Yeah. I mean, I assume one could say.
Nobody's ever experienced seeing something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't know what to do, and so they just do what they know. And, hey, we buried this guy, and have some mourners come out and pour a little whiskey out for them, and then move on with clearing the land, and crops got to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are some really cool historical topics, some things to check out.
Well, I mean, we can't talk about those and not talk about Roswell.
I would agree. Roswell is the one incident that brought all this to the mainstream, brought it all to the light. I'm sure there were sightings and crashes and things that happened before Roswell, but after Roswell, I mean, everyone knows Roswell. That you say Roswell, people think UFOs or ET or little green men. And it's what are your thoughts on Roswell, Mac?
I don't know. So a farmer or a worker on a ranch found debris 30 miles in Roswell in 1947, right?
Right.
From some sort of crash. He reported to see a wreckage made of rubber strips, tinfoil, and like tough paper and sticks.
Yeah. Like a metallic skin kind of.
Yeah. He reported it, and a few days later, it was most of the wreckage was recovered by RAAF Major Jesse Marshall.
Good old Air Force.
So, what confuses me about it is, after they recovered it, the public information officer for the RAAF, he issued a press release stating that personnel from the field had recovered a flying disc which had crashed into a ranch near Roswell.
Okay.
The next day, they instead redacted that and said that it was a crashed experimental weather balloon.
Oh, yeah.
What I don't understand is, if it's a weather balloon, how did the guys that launched it not know or not recognize it and say it was something else? Yeah. Well, not claim it, but just when they went to pick it up, how did they not go, oh, that's a weather balloon? Even if it was top secret and they didn't know what that weather balloon looked like.
Right. You're saying why did they initially come out and say it was a crash flying disc?
Correct, yeah.
Because it was a crash flying disc.
Yeah. That's like, I mean, yeah. As far as just a description goes, rubber strips, tinfoil, and sticks, and that kind of sounds like a
something
balloon to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But I don't know, maybe it was a different material and seemed like rubber or tinfoil because of the crash.
Sure, yeah. I mean, anything can, if there was a fire or an explosion or anything, it can
alter its state.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm iffy on it because it does seem like it could be a weather balloon, but at the same time they contradict themselves when they should know right away.
Right.
If it was. What do you think about it?
I think that it. I don't see it. Okay, of course I want to go out and say, yeah, it was extraterrestrials it was UFOs, crash flying discs, all that. I think what it was, I honestly think that it was a government experiment that we accidentally crashed or lost. And yes, there was tinfoil back then. Yeah, but with the unlimited resources of the United States government, where I'm sure that even back then we could be experimenting with tinfoil, but it doesn't act like tinfoil, or
Right.
just different types of stuff that the public isn't going to be aware of, and even some of the low-ranking officers might not be aware of. And to them, they're going to say, oh yeah, that's a UFO. But someone higher up is going to say, no, that's this project. But we'll let you go ahead and push the UFO story to shed the light off, because we're not just going to say, no, that's a government project.
Right.
Forget that you found it.
I believe the explanation is it was probably some type of radar blocking
Some
weather
radar
balloon. Yeah, and they didn't want the Russians to know that they were messing with that kind of technology.
Absolutely. I mean, this is 20 years before, the space race. So, I'm sure that there are enough forward thinkers in the government that we're, advancing our technology behind closed doors. And if something like that happens, we're not just going to say, we don't have those magic things they have in Men in Black that erases memory. But they got to have something, and that's just it was the perfect time. There was the perfect response to shed enough light away from what it really was. And in that, with the pop culture, the sightings around the country starting to get into pop culture, and then X-Files, was it X-Files, or there's an old TV show that highlighted Roswell in the 90s. Okay, not that old, but Roswell was put on the map with that, but then it really blew up in the 90s. And that's when, like, the festivals and everything. So I think it's an explanation that the government let us go. They let us have, but enough people have seen these things or have had experiences that they truly identify with that subject, and they might have seen that as that's a crash UFO. They said it for one day, it was a crash UFO. Well, I don't think it was, but your passion and your attraction to this subject is going to make you claim that it was.
The only people who know are the
only people that know are the people that built it and put it up there.
Exactly, and we don't know who that was because nobody will tell.
Exactly, so. And especially if it crashed, that's probably a failed test. So it's either credit or criticism, and they're willing to not take the criticism and just let us run away with it. But it does sadden me that you can bring up Roswell and 80% of people are just going to immediately discount you as being nuts, but you can't control them.
That's the world we live in.
Right. So those are some cases that we wanted to bring to you guys' attention. As always, form your own conclusion, do your own research. These are just ones that we felt had enough credence to actually bring up and discuss.
Correct. Get the gears spinning and everything.
Right. Yeah. There's and it doesn't stop here. These are a drop in the bucket of the events that have happened and are currently happening.
I mean, who knows? Look up wherever you live, UFO sightings. See if anybody's seen some over the years.
Oh, sure, yeah. There's MUFON is a really good source. They have a map of sightings. It's really easy to navigate, and they're Mutual UFO Network. If you're not familiar with them, if you just Google MUFON, they'll take you to your website. But yeah, there's communities that are really trying to bring this to the forefront, and we get a little vindication with the what's been declassified and recognized, but we still got to keep on fighting the good fight. And our cameras are getting better. We're starting to get irrefutable evidence. The military evidence is insane. The Navy pilot videos. Definitely check those out. But yeah, those are some topics we wanted you guys to be aware of and do some research on. Keep your eyes to the sky. You never know when you might have the next experience in your area.
Exactly.
So
thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Have a good one. Be safe.